Good afternoon, everybody. This is Chris Scully and Matt Winslow coming to you from Drive. And today we're joined by Jan and Sandy Calaguiro from Inland Truck and Trailer. Welcome.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. So to get started, why don't you guys tell us about how you got started in the business, how long you've been in business, generally, give us a little bit of history.
Well, back in '96, we won the lottery and thought we'd build a shop, and no, that's not it at all. I was working for a transport company. I was a service manager of the shop in the same building that we're in now. And just a couple weeks before Christmas in '96, the owner came to us and said he was ceasing operations by the 31st. So, all those emotions go through, like, geez, I worked so hard for you, and now you're letting us down and all that, right? And based a real quick of what happened is I went to the mechanics and said, look, I'm willing to keep a shop going here if everybody wants to stay on. And they did. Every single guy stayed on. And so we went from there. From January 1st of '97, we worked, and we had 6 mechanics and a helper, and worked 2 shifts. Basically, business went on as usual. Of what we were doing previous to this, just under a new name, and now we were doing outside work only and no internal work on our own units. The transport company kind of went away, and it was a tough go, but out of the gate, I didn't realize what a tough go it was. And I just learned to roll with it and think this is the way business is. So from '97 to probably around 2000, we did the same sales and the same no profit every year. And then I don't know what happened, honestly, but in '01 or so, I got a little bit smarter, and I started making a little bit of profit every year up to about 2012. And what happened around 2009 or 2010 is my son, who was about 17 at the time, said, hey, Dad, I want to go to college and everything, but when I'm done, I want to take over this business. And at first I was happy, and I thought, great. And then I thought, that's a ton of work for not enough pay. Okay, straight up. And we work still now, and we've always worked 2 shifts. So we're open from 7 a.m. in the morning till midnight. So I was working from before 7 a.m. until often 9 or 10 o'clock at night, getting stuff done, and not really going so good. And so Sandy, she says, like, Wes, why do you want to get involved in this? It's not great. It's a ton of work to not make very much money, and
Never have any time off.
never have any time off. Like virtually for 15 years, I didn't take one holiday, and people have said to me, how do you balance, that and family and stuff? And honestly, I say, you don't. It's good. You need a good partner, and you have a good partner at home that's willing to take over a lot of more responsibility that you would be doing. But I've never heard anyone who's really successful that has a good balance out of the gate with home life and work life. I just honestly, I think it's impossible. But what I did, as time went on, I thought about what our son was saying about taking over the business. And I had, if that was 10, I had probably right around that time got a little brochure from Management Success in the mail. And like most of like brochures like that, when I got the mail, I would just throw them out. For some reason, I kept it. One Sunday afternoon, I was getting caught up on paperwork, and I opened up my drawer, and I must have done enough paperwork to get down to that paper again. And I had a minute, and I read it. And I thought, man, they must have a little camera. I know you've heard this story a million times, but they must have a little camera because it sounds just like me, right? and and I am a believer in coaching. Okay, if I want to be a better hockey player, I get a good coach, and he shows me, how to be a better hockey player. So, and I believed it, and that's kind of what I was hoping I would get with you guys. And the nuts and bolts of it are, I did, 100%. So what happened was I looked at this, and there was going to be, you guys were having a little show in Toronto in a couple months. Talked to Sandy, and she says, no, I don't want to do it. And I said, no, you know what? I don't want to do it either. And then the show was like, it was really inexpensive, like $100 or something. And, a night in a hotel in Toronto. So we did it. And it was almost like a vacation at the time. And so we went to the show, and during the show, it's all seemed good. And we had the opportunity. I was really pushing the sales guys that were there. They were, saying like, we think it's good. We think you're a good fit for us. Why don't you come on board? And what they said was, what I said was, who's on it, right? Because it was very much at the time in 2012. And so it was very much cars. Everything was car related. So I said, who's got truck shops, that I can talk to? They said, well, we don't have very many. Well, this was the straw that broke the camel's back for me to say yes, is they said, well, we know this one person, Lynetta. So said, we'll give you her number and you can call her, right? So I called her. And as you guys know, she's very responsive, and you ask her questions and she'll chat your ear off about the answer. So what it was is what made it really good is she said, what I can tell you is we're on our way right now. Her and David were on their way to a Broncos game. I guess they're big Bronco fans. And they said it is the first time ever that they've been able to go away from the shop. The first time ever was the time that I was calling them. And she says, I'll tell you, if you want to improve your business, just go with management, like Drive now, right? Management Success at the time. And it was good. And she said, they had only been on the program a year or maybe a little over a year. And she says, I'll tell you, we have improved our shop. Our profits are going up every month. And in the first year, we've saved enough money to do a renovation on a back shop. And they renovated their back shop and put a new floor in, or they did a bunch of work. And she was really, she was good. It was good to talk to. And I hung up the phone and said to Sandy, like, that sounds really good. She says, it does. I said, okay, let's sign up. And it seemed like a lot of money at the time, especially when you're just making sure that you're making ends meet and things are going along okay. But, after that, in 2012,
that's when we signed up with them.
Yeah, at the very end of 2012. That year and previous years, we had just broke even or maybe lost a little bit of money or made a little bit. but virtually nothing extra. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Since that time, and we could never break $1 million in sales, no matter what, no matter how busy we were or whatever, right? In 2013, we broke $1 million, which that was, to me at the time, it was like, I was over the moon. And we ended up with profit at the end of that year, like in a good chunk of profit, not just $10, it was good. And, really from that point on, we just kept on the program, with the advisor and kind of with their direction, kept growing and growing and growing. This year, 2022, with our new addition in that, we should be 2.2, 2.3 in sales. And what I've kind of realized, it's great having those sales, but what's more fun is the profitability, So, it's kind of one of those things I heard a saying when I was younger: I don't need any more money. I just need to keep it in my jeans, So, so the profitability is a huge component of the success of a business, and if you can be profitable and increase sales, is what I really learned from you guys. So we went along, to go quicker on my story, we went along to about 2019, and we were, like I say, every year our gross sales either went up substantially or our profits went up. What kind of happened is our gross sales would go up, but our profits would stay the same. The next year, if our gross sales were close to the same, our profits were much more. So we kind of found a way to get more sales and then made it productive. I guess what I've got to learn to do better is do it at the same every year, But in 2020, things were going along good at the start, actually really great at the start. And then when we were going to do an expansion and a renovation on our shop, and with COVID hitting in that, we held back and we didn't. So 2020 wasn't as good a year, but we were still okay. And in 2021, we ended up getting things together and we did our renovation, which that had its challenges for sure, doing the renovation while working at the same time. And we went
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, we went from a 7-bay shop to a 12-bay shop. And now we were fully working in the 12-bay shop in the middle of November. And I guess the bad part of it is I need more employees now because, we're busy and the 12 bays are rocking.
Questions.
That's an amazing story. Go ahead, Matt.
In Canada, you've got 11 federal holidays and a mandatory 2 weeks vacation. So, and the government makes the weather really, really cold this time of year. So they're telling you should party and relax and have fun.
Yeah.
So can you tell me about your life, before 2000, but, before Drive? I'm hearing some stress, and I'd love to know, business is great, but how did that change your personal satisfaction, your life, the fun, hopefully putting some fun back in your world?
Well, before Drive, I was so busy at work. When it snowed a lot, I had to come to work anyway, so Sandy did the shoveling.
Yeah, that's true. The neighbors used to complain to me. All the ladies used to come up and say, "Don't shovel anymore."
No, but really what's happened is, one of the big things that I realized going with Drive was that you can't work in the business if you're going to work on the business. And if you're working on the business, you can't work in the business. But what I really found out of the gate, and when we went to our first classes in 2012, the big thing was, you want to be the boss, or do you want to be the owner, or do you want to be a worker? If you want to be a worker on the floor or the parts guy or whatever, then hire a manager and let them run the business. But you can't do both. And so, I know.
Well, now in the shop, as you're asking, Matt, now Jan doesn't work as many hours. He can go, he loves to cycle, and he goes home early and goes cycling. So it's definitely been better. And we've taken long weekends off now to go to the cottage, my parents' cottage and stuff. So it's nice because we never used to be able to do that before.
The nuts and bolts of it, guys, are that I do not have to come to work any day. I could go and say, you know what, to the service advisors, I'm not going to be here for a month. Well, Mike would say, okay, and Chris would say, great.
They do. Yeah, Chris does.
So,
don't come in. It's okay.
So yeah. So no, and it's good. When there's a problem, I have no problem. Like whatever, if someone needs help diagnosing a problem, although I'm not that good at it now because I've been off the floor for so long. But life is way less stressful. Okay, where I notice it is I can do stuff now. I lived with the situation, call it, for so long that I didn't even realize that it was a ton of stress. You just learned to live with that. After, when things are going along smoother in that, and you're not saying, oh geez, we only got $30,000 this week in to pay bills, we're going to be tough, right? Now that's not, it's not a concern, and the stress level is gone from 10 to 1, like it's
wow,
so nice.
That's great.
A big part of that is getting the people that are good at their job, and then trusting them to do it.
Can I ask you another question? So I guess about 2013 is when you started.
Yes.
So, and this is also directed to your lovely bride there. So your husband, he's saying, hey, we should spend even more money, even though we're not making any money, and let's go, do this thing. How quick, I would imagine there's incredible hesitation. I know when I was in business, when I'm not making any money, I'm like, you want me to just spend what? Yeah. My wife would have said, everything else you spent money on, you never implemented, so I'm not going to let you do that again. How quick did it turn for you, and how did you, how quick did it make a difference in your life? Because it was a big leap of faith, I think, on your part.
I remember that seminar that we went on to when Jan wanted to sign up for it. I was hesitant. I was really hesitant because it was a lot of money. And our son, we actually phoned our son and talked to him. And right away he said, do it for sure. Join up, and you guys need help, direction, stuff. So, but at first it was really hard, and it did take a while actually, until we went to the first year and a half. We didn't really see a lot of improvement, even though Jan was working on trying to change a lot of things. It was a year and a half later we really noticed the change. We were out in California at a conference, and we met a couple there, and they had been on it for about 2.5 years. And she was mentioning after first year and a half, she wanted to scrap it, wasn't making a difference for them or anything like that. And I was really upset too, because I thought, oh, this isn't working for us. And then it was right after we came back from that, it was like, we just all of a sudden,
like a switch.
Yeah, it just all of a sudden started changing from then on for the better.
What really helped us too was that Chris our service writer now, and she's the one that when we came back from the first course, the first thing I asked her when I got back is, do you want to be the service writer? And she said no. And then she said yes, but if you stay away from, like, stay out of it. So after a month or maybe a couple months, she came and says, I don't want to do this job anymore unless you let me do it.
Mm.
And I said, Chris, you got to do it as good as me then.
She's,
No,
she said, I'll do
and it
anything
was,
you want me to do.
and she was good. And then it was perfect, you know, but yeah, and letting her do it. And then just realizing that she may not be doing it exactly the way I would do it. But so, but the relationship was good and the open conversation was good. So I'd say, hey, Chris, like, I overheard this and maybe it should have been like that. She'd say, yeah, okay. And then she would maybe say to a customer on the phone, put them on hold and say, Jan, this is the situation that I have. I'd give her some tips and then she would handle it. After, it just went like no problem. It didn't take long for her, probably longer than I'm remembering, but for her to really grab on and then take hold. And one thing that I know, you asked me what really changed.
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking to a guy and I told him a big difference of what the last, say, 6 or 7 years against the previous years that I've been in business has been probably 80% of our new customers over the last 6 or 7 years don't even know who I am.
Wow.
One day, and I like that, okay? One day, Chris asked me if I could give, we were really busy, if I could give a guy a ride back to his yard. And I said, sure. And so I'm giving him a ride back and we're talking. He was a really nice guy. And he asked me, he'd been in probably 10 times and seen me in my office. And he asked me about, you know, the business and stuff like that a little bit. And he thought I was their accountant. And I thought, you know what, that's perfect. You know, it's, I don't mind anybody knowing who I am and I want to meet everybody, you know. But I thought this is what really is a big step. People don't know who you are. So if there's a problem with a bill, or someone thinks they were overcharged, or, you know, something wasn't fair, whatever, which actually we're lucky it doesn't happen very often at all. But they don't know, they only know to talk to Chris or Mike, you know, the people that they talk to all the time, right? And they don't even know who to ask for. They don't even know that Jan, they just know that they're bringing their unit, their truck, their trailer, their fleet or whatever to Inland. Inland's taking care of them.
Nice.
And their contacts there are Chris in the day or Mike in the afternoon. End of story. So they have a concern. Those guys take care of it.
Nice.
Sometimes they'll come to me for an answer, but still they make the call back to the customer. And that the load there off of me is huge, and it's much easier for them. You know,
one of the things I've seen over the years, if I could just feedback what you said, as business owners, when we're doing it all ourselves and we're working crazy hours, we have this fear that no one can do it as well. And yet what we forget is if we have one hiccup in our health, the entire business implodes, where now you've got a whole army. You know, I mean, if you have to replace someone, swell, but you've got a cash flow machine now that's not dependent on you, which has got to be a huge lift of, you know, stress and fear.
Huge. That's huge. You know, like I can do things, you know, we can do things. And it's funny now, every now and then, you know, I'll say, okay, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. I say, okay, I'm going home. And Sandy will look at me and says, well, you just got here at 10. I said, well, I don't have anything else to do and I'm going to go. Right. And then she'll stay late. She'll get home at, say, 7:00. And I says, telling you, Sandy, you're turning into Jan. Nobody can do anything without you, but
Well, I got two
That's
words
an-
for you guys: the Grand Mexico. That's where all my successful Canadian clients hang out in January, February, and March. I mean, it's so fun. It was so fun. I was down there the other day, and I said, "Where are you from?" The guy said, "Ottawa." And I go, "Oh, the capital." He goes, "Wow, you're like the only American that doesn't think it's Toronto, man."
yeah,
It's wonderful
Yeah.
folks down there. So
yeah.
congratulations to both of you. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys have done an awesome job, and thank you for joining us. We're actually right up on our time. It's amazing how fast it goes. And I had a couple of other questions, but we'll have to save those for another time. Great story. You guys have come a long way, and congratulations on all your success. And next week we have Keith Mayhew of Keith's Auto Repair and his drive coach, Andy Gonzalez, joining us. And that's all we have for this show. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Jan and Sandy, thanks again. Your story is awesome, and congratulations on everything you've accomplished.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.